Hello, everyone. Welcome to my webinar. Today, I am going to talk to you again about the way to buy your first home with just 5% down. Welcome, everyone, to my webinar. And this one is specifically talking about buying a home, rental first home. If you never buy a home before, if you never investing in real estate before, this webinar is for you. And especially if you don't have much of capital upfront, this is also for you. All right. Because with only 5% down, actually, this is the way that I can purchase my first rental property. So check it out, and we'll go into detail. We'll go into the detail right now. By the way, before we get started, happy Valentine, everyone, and hope you have a wonderful time with your loved one. All right. Step number one in the seventh step is going to save $1,000. Okay. So it sounds very similar to the to the seven baby step to pay off the debt, right? Kind of copy a little bit, right? Because I believe that this step one, owning a house, is when you own a house, you have a lot of financial responsibility. Okay. And when we talk about financial responsibility, money is the number one important, right? So this 1,000 is actually an initial start for you. If you say it is a lot, it's not really a lot. If it is a little, it's not really a little, right? And it's a good start so that it's not too big, so that you get tired and you give up. But it's not too small for you to very easy to get, right? Get 1,000 done so that you can get a momentum. Because if only 1,000 and you don't have the ability or you don't have the mean to do so, then how can you buy a house? Right. So think about it. The house is in addition to the down payments, the closing cost, the repairs, the maintenance of the house, right? There's a lot of financial involvement into the process, and the 1,000 is just actually the start. So as long as you can achieve this goal, you're ready for the next step. Okay, which you're gonna pay off your bad debt. Okay, what is the definite pay? The reason why I have to pay off the bad debt is create the opportunity for you to obtain the mortgage. Okay, why is that? Okay, because normally when you pay off your when you apply for a mortgage, you actually applying for the loan officer gonna calculate debt to income ratio. Okay, debt to income ratio, and I'm assuming that the income portion doesn't change much, right? As you do the mortgage, it doesn't. It's like, okay, I'm gonna do the mortgage application today, and my income gonna increase tomorrow or next week or next month, right? There may be a chance, but rarely, right? But the debt, you can actually control it because you can actually apply your income towards debt and reduce the amount of debt. There's two types of debt, which number one is bad debt and number two is good debt, right? What is the definition of a bad debt? That is the debt that you end up actually pay for more than what you owe. Huh? For example, if you buy a car for $20,000, right? Or maybe an easier example is if you buy using a credit card for $2,000, and then at the end of the day, because you have to pay interest, you don't pay the full balance at the end of the month, then you have to pay interest on the amount you borrow. Okay, so instead of 2,000, you actually end up paying to 2,500, 3,000 at the end of the day. Okay, so that's bad debt. The other situation, like I said, a car, right? 20,000, right? 20,000 to buy a car, and not only you have to pay 20,000 on the value of the car, but because you take on the loan, right? You actually end up paying 30,000, 35,000, depending on the interest, right? And the other effect of buying a car is that the value of the car is actually goes down as you driving a car, right? So that is considered bad debt because you actually paying for more than what you own. And some of you may say, what about if I buy a car for to drive, to do Uber, to do Lyft, and then I can rent out and then get actually income from that? In that situation, is actually considered good debt, right? Because you create some income that, number one, can cover the debt, and number two, can also help you getting additional income, right? So that is considered good debt and then no longer bad debt, right? So in this situation, I only advise you to pay off the bad debts. Number one reason is to help you with qualifying for the mortgage, and number two is actually reduce easier. Number one is easier for you to apply for the mortgage, and number two is going to be helping you easier to get a lower interest rate. All right, so that's the reason. And when you are done, oh wait, so the way that you pay off your bad debt is, I advise, I think, similar process than um, Mr. Dave Ramsey is list out, from lowest to highest and pay off the lowest first to the highest later. Why? You want to check out Dave Ramsey channel. I highly recommend that if you want to find out the reason why you want to pay off bad debt that way. Okay. Number three is to save for $5,000. Okay. The goal is to make sure you financial ready. Okay. And with the 5% down, okay, you as a potential homeowner can purchase a home. You don't need to have 20%. A lot of investors want to start the process and get stuck because they assume that they have to buy 20%. But if you never bought a home before, you have the right to put down 5%. Okay. Some of you may ask, how much is 5%? Well, great question, right? That if you haven't bought a real estate before, you probably don't know the home value in a certain area. I would suggest that you talk to an agent to gather that information. For example, you can tell him or her, I want to buy a house in this area. I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1 story, 1,500 square feet, right? So with all that information, he or she can say, then you're gonna be looking at 450, okay, for example, or 500,000, okay, for example. And then for the purpose of easy, and then let's use the 500,000, right? If that is the number you are going to look for, then 5% of 500 is 25,000. That's going to be your goal. That's going to be your goal. And some of you may ask when. It depends on how aggressive you want to be. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. The sooner you can achieve that, the better, the faster you can purchase the home, right? So 25,000 is going to be your goal. What are we going to do next? I think the next step is very interesting to a lot of people. That is buying a primary home. Wait a minute, Long. You just told me that I can buy a 5% an investment home with only 5% down. And now you're asking me to buy a primary home. Why is that the case? Okay. Because here's what I believe, okay? A primary home is actually a very good starting point for you to success in future real estate. That is actually my way to be in real estate right now. I I think it's just by accident, by the way. I didn't think of anything about real estate investing, but now looking at it, I think that's the best decision. And actually, yeah, if you hang around a little bit in step 5, 6, and 7, I'm gonna show you exactly how I convert that into a primary rental property. Anyway, so that's going to be a foundation. And I think that during the process of buying a primary home, you learn a lot from buying property as well. And I think that's the reason why it's important, because if you buy an investment property right away, and you don't have a lot of experience with real estate, you're going to be so much confused. You not only have to worry about how to pick a house, but you also have to come up with a question like, how do I know if it is a good investment property? By buying a primary home, you already make a good investment, regardless, right? Regardless of how much income you get from that property, you already make a good investment decision because you're no longer renting, right? I assume if you don't have the house, you have to rent, right? And then if you don't have to rent, you actually save up those money towards your own property. Okay, so in long story short, I think today webinar, we're not going to have time to talk about the benefit of rent versus owning a house, right? But when you buy a primary home, you don't have to worry about real estate investment. Okay, well, let me take it back. When you buy a primary home, you don't have to worry, calculate the number to see whether it is a good investment property or not, right? But rather, you just buy your home where you can stay, in. Okay, the reason why I say it's a good investment already is that you're gonna have some potential appreciation by time and some tax advantage, and that's gonna be the start of learning how to learning how to, number one, go searching for a house, how the purchasing process looks like as well, and therefore you're gonna be able to identify the good investment property later. You don't have to worry about investment deal right now. Okay, so step number 4, right? We're not gonna stop here. Okay, step number 5, we're gonna share a room. Okay, this is actually a way for you to get extra income as well as learning a lot to become the real landlord. I use the word real landlord, but I think it may not be accurate. But regardless, you're gonna be a landlord anyway. Okay, because here's the thing, right? You're gonna be able to how do I say this? Because you live in a house, right? You live in that house, then if you stop right there, you'll not be able uh, uh, to learn anything about real estate investing. So if you share a room, okay, you have to know whether that person is a good tenant or not, whether that tenant has a job or not, whether that tenant has the ability to pay or not, right? And you have to deal with the day-to-day, daily maintenance request, and to make sure that the room is in a livable condition. Those are the things that very similar to when you rent out the long-term tenant property. Okay, very similar, although this is going to be a much smaller scale because you only do one room and you live at the property, right? So the chance that you can do your own work and easier for you to communicate, right? Much easier than if you're renting a house. The reason why I encourage you to do this is because it's take small step at a time, right? You learn from small and then you gain experience and you do something more bigger. That's going to be easier and easier and easier for you. It's going to take a long time. I agree that. If you're looking for something like quick and easy, this is not for you. Okay, but if you take something small step at a time, because I know that you guys busy with the day-to-day job, you're busy with everything like going on, children, work, learning about real estate. Okay, so that's why I'm recommend you to like take small step at a time, and sharing a room is actually the best way for you to do so. How do you do that? How did I do it? I share a room to an Airbnb, and I'm just doing that for a monthly basic, and to do what? To save up money for my next property. Okay. Some of you may ask, the other question is, what if I'm not comfortable? Then don't. Okay. Then don't. If you feel not comfortable, not feeling comfortable about the security, right? Then don't. Or maybe you can find a family member who want to share with you or share a room with you if you want to. It's easier, right? Find trustworthy person that you already know, right? So that one way to do it, right? You don't have to be doing something crazy like Airbnb or assisted living or co-living or anything like that. Just choose something simple for you and easiest for you. Okay. Step number 5 is very important because you learn from the experience. Okay. When you do that, you're ready for step number 6, which is a little bit more complicated and gonna take time. All right. Even though we say only 15 minutes and we already go to step number 6, right? But in real life, it could take a year. This one is actually take me 5 years to achieve. Now, Now, that's not a fair comparison, okay? Because here's the thing, I didn't think that I will be a real estate investing, okay? So I didn't looking for some creative option, all right? But if I know about it, I could have done that way before, right? The reason is that as you own a home, right, you can actually see increase the value, okay? Your mortgage balance is going down and your equity going up, right? So you have some equity in your home that you can get refinanced and get that as the money to buy to do anything you want with that money, actually. Okay, but at least 1 year, because if you, unless it is in the unusual year like COVID happened where the appreciation go way higher, right, then you can achieve the amount of money that you want from the refinance. But in general, it will not. Okay, so I would recommend wait for at least a year. Okay, um but if you have a way to gain capital very quickly from step 5, or maybe from your job, right, then you don't have to wait for a year, right, whenever you think is possible. And in fact, if you already have the capital in step outside of step 6, then you can skip the entire step. This one is mainly for those who do not, like I said, this webinar is meant for someone who willing to take time, okay, uh, take slow process rather than fast and quick decision. Okay, so it take long time, that's fine for that people. Okay, and then that's the reason why you're gonna choose the refinance, because that is the one that, because you own the property, so you have the ability to do the refinance and therefore getting more money from that. Okay, get more money from the property. And what are you gonna do with that money? Step number 5, earning extra income a little bit on a monthly basic. And step number 6 is getting the money from the equity of the house as a junk. And you go to step number 6, which is actually buying a second house to move in and renting the first one. And when you rent the first one, you actually, that's the way for you to that become your long-term rental. And remember, in step number 4, right, we only buy that property for only 5% down. So I didn't lie to you. We just bought a rental property that are only 5% down. But it's just take time, right? It's take time, at least a year. So, and then you move into the next to the second house, and then you redo the entire process, 457, 457, 457 every year. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you can move to the next property and the next property and the next property. Some of you may say, Long, I'm tired of moving. I don't want to move anymore. Oh, well, that's fine. Then the next rental property, you have to put in 20% down. Okay, so that's the rule, and you have to follow. When you buy an investment property, solely investment property, and rent out right away, you are required to put 20% down. As the time of recording this video, that's the rule, right? We have to play by the rule. I'm not the guy who don't want to play by the rule, right? So you have to do that. If you do faster, this is not for you, but this is the perfect way, and this is exactly the option, the route that I took. Okay, I bought a property in Glendale. I live in the property for about 6 years, 5 years. I'm sorry, 5 years. And when the time is due, I'm actually refinance the first property. Okay, get the capital and buy the second house. And you know what? After I moved to the second house, after a month, I already rent the property in Glendale. So that is how I got my first rental property for only 5%. Oh, here's a secret, okay? Here's a secret. I'm actually only down 3.5%. But I don't recommend you to do so, okay? Now, the reason why I can do that was, number one, I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have any instruction. I think for me, 5% is a good starting point, and especially with a high interest rate right now, right? You don't want to own too much. You don't want to have too much mortgage payment, and it's become a nightmare. So that's the reason why I recommend 5% at the minimum. Okay, so that is all for the webinar, and here's a high level of the 7 baby steps. Right, step number 1, save 1,000. Step number 2, pay off the bad debt. Step number 3, save 5% down. Step number 4, buy the primary home, share a room, refinance to get extra money. And step 7, buy the second house and rent out the first one. Well, that is all I have for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching today's webinar. And next week, we're going to have a webinar for home seller about a program that we can actually guarantee the sale of your home. And I'm looking forward, if you know anyone who are interested in selling, potential thinking about selling, please refer them to that webinar, and more than happy to share with you how we can guarantee the sale of that property. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.